Do you have exams coming up soon? Well, so do I. So in this video I wanted to take you through how I set up a revision plan for studying mechanical engineering for the exams that I have in January next year. So I plan on actually setting up my revision plan on my calendar with you right now, hopefully to help you give some inspiration as to how I do it and help you to maybe do your own plan. Plus, this video is helping me to actually start thinking about revision rather than leaving it to the last minute. So a quick note, if you've watched any of my videos before, you know that I love, and I've quoted him a lot, Ali Abdul and his channel. And about 4 years ago he uploaded some videos about revision techniques that are sort of scientifically based. So if you are looking for specific revision techniques, I would go back and watch those videos because they're very clear as to how to set up your revision from a technique standpoint. And I'm going to talk about some of those techniques in this video. This is more to do with how to set up a plan. And also this video is more drawing on my past 4 years of university experience of doing exams over the past 4 years during COVID and also in person. So the key overarching sort of point with this is known as active recall, which is effectively where you are practicing remembering things that you've learnt, trying it for yourself, such as using flashcards or making mind maps from memory and then going back and filling in any missing information. And sort of trying to do it yourself without sort of the notes in front of you can be a really powerful way of doing that. Now, turns out I've been doing this without realising for the past couple of years. For example, I would make mind maps from my notes, so that's not active recall, but then I'd try and summarise a mind map into a single flashcard from memory, and that's a great way of remembering information. However, by far the most important technique I've found for revision is just doing the questions, and this is a form of active recall because it's making you do the thinking and applying the knowledge, and then you can go back and mark it and have a look and see where you went wrong. And this, for engineering students and maths students, is by far the number one thing I would recommend, and that's what I'm going to do. If you're more of a medic-y, sort of having a lot of information to know and facts to learn, I'd maybe try the flashcard route. I know that there's some apps out there that are really helpful with regard to active recall. So at this point I'm going to start recording my screen and I'm going to take you through what I'm actually going to do this Christmas for revision. So the first major point I wanted to make really is you need to set out straight away from the start when you are going to allow yourself to do work and when you're not going to allow yourself to do work. And that's really important over a time like Christmas when there's going to be times where your family's around and you want to be present and not working. So for me, I've sort of said I'm coming back from university this Saturday and I want to start work on Monday. However, Christmas Eve is on the Saturday, so I just don't want to work from that weekend all the way till after New Year. Just because that's when people are coming around and I want to be fully focused on having fun with my family. So that's literally the first thing I wanted to do, was just set that out. I'm also going skiing in the new year, literally the week before my exams start, which is maybe not a great recommendation. I'm going to do a little bit of revision during that time, but I'm not going to do it the same sort of intensity that I will for the rest of the time. So that gives me 9 full sort of days to revise if I need to. So the next question is, what exams do I have? So for me, I have 3 exams this year. One is Integrated Systems Analysis, the other is Advanced Propulsion Systems, and the final one is known as Intro to Automotive Technologies. Interestingly, Advanced Propulsion and Intro to Auto have a lot of very similar content. In fact, one of the lecturers does multiple lectures in both the modules, and I'm pretty sure he reuses his slides. So that kind of makes things a bit more easy for me. Another thing, if you haven't already looked at this, another thing that's worth looking at is how many credits is each module worth, and also what weighting is the exam. So for me, my Integrated Systems Analysis, all of my exams are worth 10 credits. Integrated Systems Analysis is a 60% worth exam, so that's effectively 6 credits. Intro to Auto is also 10 credits, but the exam's worth 40%, so it's only 4 credits. But Advanced Propulsion Systems is 100% exam for 10 credits. So that effectively means that's worth the full 10 credits. Now that is quite a good thing for me to look at initially, just to help me break down my time. So let's say I have 9 days, as I said, and let's say I'm doing 8 hours every day. That's 72 hours over that whole period of time. There will obviously be more time throughout exam period and things like that, but right now I'm just focusing on Christmas. So when looking at that timetable, as I said, I'm going to start on Monday the 19th and work up to the day before Christmas Eve. If I split the hours that I've laid out based on the number of credits that each exam is worth, that means half of my time needs to be spent on Advanced Propulsion Systems, which is about 4.5 days. I've calculated as 21.6 hours, which is nearly 3 days of revision for Integrated Systems Analysis. And then finally, it's about 2 days worth of work on Introduction to Automotive Technologies. So once you've worked out the weighting of each sort of module that you have an exam for, it's worth also looking at what resources do you want to tap into in order to do your revision. So for me, as I said, the main thing I want to do is just questions. So breaking down each topic, I'll start with the biggest one, which is, for me, Advanced Propulsion Systems. I know that within this module, I've got, within some of my lecture slides, there are some examples that they take you through. So I want to go over all of those again, and then the obvious one is I want to go over all the exam papers as well. And then applying the same sort of technique to my integrated systems analysis, within this module, at the end of every single sub-lecture there was a check my understanding page that I purposefully didn't do so that I could do it for a revision. And I'm going to start by doing all of those just to check my understanding, and then I'll transition into exam papers again with this module. And then finally, Introduction to Automotive. This one is a little bit more fact-based, so I'm probably going to do maybe a couple of hours of making some flashcards of a few of the bits and bobs, such as I've got to learn about suspension systems and draw out body and white diagrams and car layouts. So I'm going to spend maybe 1 or 2 hours on that, and then the rest of the time will be on the exam paper. So now you've done the groundwork, and I would encourage you do that groundwork first. It's now time to put everything into your calendar. So I'm going to be using the calendar app in Apple. You don't have to use that. You can write it out on paper. Some people find it really helpful to write it out and to like stick it to their wall so they can sort of keep track of everything. So I know that I'm looking at about 4.5 days on Advanced Propulsion Systems, about 3 days on Integrated Systems Analysis, and then the final sort of 2-ish days on Integrated Auto. Now, this is not a religious activity of you must do this amount. There are going to be times within that week where I'm going to have to maybe pop out and do some shopping for some Christmas gifts, but it's not a religious thing of you have to stick to it. It's more of a guideline. So I'm going to start doing that now. I'll probably fast forward through it. I forgot to say one really key thing actually is obviously check when your exams actually are. So for me, it's a 2-week long exam period, and my first exam is the Integrated Systems Analysis. Then on a Saturday, I've got an Introduction to Automotive, and then the week after I've got my Advanced Propulsion. So actually, on my Advanced Propulsion, I don't want to spend way too much time over Christmas on it. I'm still going to do those balances, but it just means that when I go skiing, the only area I'm going to focus on, I think, is Integrated Systems Analysis. So that's just one thing to bear in mind. Another thing I forgot to mention is always put in things like exercise first, because I absolutely am a believer that you will revise so much better if you spend time taking care of your body and your health and things. So make sure that you do some exercise if that's something that you enjoy. Definitely make time for that. So I always put that in first before I start chucking in my exam timetable. So as I said, I want to spend about 2 days on doing check my understanding questions. So I'm going to call them check my understanding questions. I also like to have lunch around 12-ish each day, so that's why I'll leave gaps there. Okay, so that's about a day and a half of check my understanding questions. I like to sort of keep things in chunks and blocks so that I'm not flipping too much from one module to the other. I like to sort of bulk it together. Okay, so that's the first week kind of roughly done. You'll see that what I've done is I've wanted to focus on all of the sort of initial activities that need to be done before exam papers. So the check my understanding questions, the lecture examples and flashcards, I've made sure to do that first, just so I've laid the groundwork, and then I start to get into the exam papers on Thursday and Friday. So I'm giving myself 4 hours to do an exam paper. That's partly because I do get extra time to do my exams, but I'm going to try and do it as much as I can without my notes, as using active recall. And then as I sort of start to get into a bit of a dead end, I'm going to start allowing myself to use my notes. And then the next day I'll spend about an hour marking it. It's not really marking, it's more just going over the bits that I missed and couldn't do, and that should sort of fortify my learning a bit. And then finally I'm also doing another exam paper on that Friday. I'm kind of finishing a bit early on the Friday because I think some family members of us are arriving on that afternoon, and it also gives me a bit of time if I need to pop out and get any last minute Christmas presents. So that's the first week. Okay, so I've sort of roughly filled in my time now. I just want to look back now at the times that I said that I would spend on each topic and just see where I'm at. So I said I'd spend about 4.5 days on Advanced Propulsion Systems, so I just want to have a quick look at what that's looking like at the moment. 3.5-ish there. With marking both papers as well, that's probably that's probably more about four days roughly. So I said I spend just under 3 days on integrated systems analysis. Now I have this feeling it might be a bit higher than that, but I'm going to have a look now. 3, so that's probably about right for integrated systems analysis. And then finally, it was just about nearly 2 days for intro to auto. So intro to auto, you can see I've not spent a lot of time on there, and that's okay because I'm going to focus on that a bit after my first exam. So as I said, I'm going skiing over the new year, which I'm very excited about, but I'm going to have to do some revision, and my plan is probably to do maybe 2 integrated systems analysis papers, just because that will be my first exam coming back. One quote that I absolutely love is that planning is one of the most important things that you'll ever do. However, the plan that you come up with is completely useless normally. And that is totally the case with revision timetables. You will very unlikely actually stick to it, but the important thing is just laying out how much time each thing is going to take. So I would encourage you to maybe plan your time up to your exam season starting, and then as you go through it you will have to adjust it, but that's okay because that's the whole point of planning. It's just making you look forward and seeing, okay, that's when my exam starts, that's how much I need to do by then. So the planning phase is completely invaluable, but the actual plan itself is normally useless. And I love that quote. So I'm going to leave my exam period blank for now, because I know that it will probably be adjusted quite a lot as I go through the time, but hopefully that gives you a nice summary. So I'm going to stop the screen recording here. Just to review, my 8 hours a day is a guidance really. It's probably more like 6 to 7 hours per day. As I said, planning is invaluable, the plan is useless. So this is probably taking quite a long time to go through, and it probably seems a bit strange that I'm showing it to you, but what I'm hoping is that it's going to give you a little bit of inspiration to be like, I can make my revision plan way better than that. So hopefully it will give you some helpful information to go away and make your own plan. And please remember, there is no single way to revise well. It will totally depend on what kind of learner you are, so make sure you take that into account when you're planning. But do try and use active recall, where you are making your brain work to make those links, and then going back and filling in the blanks where you missed out certain bits. I'd really encourage you to try that. So if you'd like to check out any of my other videos, there'll be one up here that YouTube will tell you is one that you might like to watch, I don't know. And also, if you've enjoyed my videos and you're not yet subscribed, then you can subscribe to this button here. That would mean a lot to me because I'm a very, very small channel. So anyway, thank you so much for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next video.